אנחנו מתחילים, אז שלום לכולם, תודה רבה שהצטרפתם אלינו לאירוע מיוחד, במסגרתו נשמע את הסיפור האישי והמרתק של ליונל פליס, שורד שואה שחי כיום בדרום אפריקה. לאירוע המרגש הזה שותפים רבים, המרכז לאימפקט יהודי, מינהל חברה ונוער במחוז חיפה, יחד עם מועצת התלמידים והנוער המחוזית ומשרד החוץ. האירוע יתקיים בשפה האנגלית, לכל מי שירצה לשמוע תרגום סימולטני בשפה העברית, אנא לחצו על האופציה של תרגום, בזום עוד מעט, ממש בעוד כמה דקות, תופיע לכם אופציה של שינוי שפה, תלחצו על העברית, ואז תשמעו את אלנה המתרגמת הסימולטנית שלנו בשפה העברית. בינתיים עד שיעלה האופציה של התרגום, אנחנו נשמח אם תשנו את השם שאיתו התחברתם לזום, כדי שנוכל לזהות את כל מי שנמצא כאן איתנו היום. בבקשה רשמו את שם התלמיד ואת שם בית הספר. So now I'm going to go to English. Thank you everyone for joining us. Of combating anti-Semitism and preservation of the memory of the Holocaust, Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. רות, בבקשה.
תודה רבה. תודה לכולם ותודה שהזמנתם אותי והצטרפתם לאירוע החשוב הזה. בפתח דבריי אני מבקשת לברך את עיריית חיפה ומנהלת מינהל חברה ונוער, את מר רוברט זינגר והמרכז לאימפקט יהודי, את יושב ראש מועצת התלמידים ואת מר ליונל פליס ותלמידים יקרים. ברשותכם אעבור לאנגלית לכמה דקות ואחר כך אחזור לעברית. On Friday, the 27th of January,
ב-27 בינואר, אנחנו נציין 78 שנה מאז תום מלחמת העולם השנייה. 78 שנים שנראים במרחק של עולמות, אבל עדיין קרובות מאוד ונוכחות בחיים שלנו. ביום הזה, הוא יוזמה של ממשלת ישראל שעבר החלטה באום. הנאצים
same time, highly dangerous, but also less human. The loss of one's self-image and self-respect is the lowest one can get. Our mission, our obligation
המחויבות שלנו,
to each and every one of those
לתת שם
who
ופנים
as
לכל
well
מי שנכחד,
those who survived.
גם לאלה
I would
ששרדו.
like to thank Mr. Lyonnel
ברצוני להודות
for
למר
telling
ליונל
his story.
פליס על שהוא
We are
מספר את
honored
הסיפור
and
שלו.
obliged to carry it.
אנחנו מחויבים להמשיך את המורשת שלו.
I will switch to Hebrew. כשאדם כותב על השואה, כתב אלי ויזל, הוא לא כותב את המילים, הוא נלחם במילים, כי אין לתאר את מה שקרה במילים. אין לתאר את מה שהקורבנות הרגישו כאשר המוות היה הנורמה והחיים היו נס. השואה לא התחילה עם הרצח והגירושים, עם מחנות ההשמדה והריכוז. היא התחילה במילים, בתעמולה שיטתית וסתנית, שיצרה אווירה שלא רק מאפשרת, אלא מעודדת ומטפחת שנאה, דחייה של האחר, והגדרת היהודים כתתי אדם. לצד זאת היו כל אותם אלו שעמדו מהצד ולא עשו דבר. הם אלו שאפשרו לרוע הזה לשגשג ולשלוט, ואם רצו או לא, ואם התכוונו או לא, הם בעצם נתנו לזה יד. ואנחנו חייבים לדעת להתייצב כנגד הרשע ולעצור אותו. היום, כשברשתות החברתיות משתולל שיח שנאה, ואנטישמיות היא חלק בלתי נפרד מהשיח הציבורי, חשוב פי כמה ללמוד את הלקחים של מאורעות השואה והימים שקדמו לה. אנחנו מציינים השנה 80 שנה לפרוץ מרד גטו ורשה, הסמל הגדול של ההתנגדות היהודית. הוא לא היה היחיד, בלא מעט מקומות היו כיסים של התנגדות לרשע, עם פעילה בלחימה ממש, ועם כל אותם אלו שסייעו בהצלת יהודים, תוך סיכון חייהם וחיי משפחתם וסביבתם. חשוב שנלמד את סיפורם ונשמר את הזיכרון של הדברים. עמידה איתנה והתנגדות לרוע, מאבק לטובת חברה פתוחה וצודקת, אינם מותרות. זו דרישה שאנחנו צריכים לשים לעצמנו בכל יום מחדש, אם חפצי חיים אנחנו. ליונל פליס, בן ארצו של אלי ויזל, יעביר את הזיכרון אליכם, ואתם, תפקידכם לשאת את הזיכרון ולהעביר אותו הלאה. אי אפשר להגזים בחשיבות שימור זיכרון השואה, ולא רק כאות כבוד לנספים ולשורדים. לימוד ההיסטוריה של השואה הוא לא רק הרחבת ידע, אלא ובעיקר הבנה מעמיקה עד כמה לכל אחד מאיתנו תפקיד בשמירה על החברה שלנו, פתוחה, סובלנית, דואגת לאחר, מסייעת לחלש ושומרת על כבוד האדם. תודה רבה.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm now pleased to invite our partner from the Haifa Regional Council
את השותף
for the
שלנו,
third year. עינב שוורץ יניב, the manager
עינב שוורץ יניב, מנהלת מנהל חברה ונוער במחוז חיפה.
שלום לכולם, ברשותכם אני אתחיל במספר תודות באנגלית. Thank you everyone for being with us.
תודה לכולם שהצטרפתם
I would
אלינו.
like first to thank Mr.
ברצוני
Lyonel
קודם
Fliss,
להודות למר
who
ליונל
agreed to
פליס,
share his personal story.
שהסכים לחלוק איתנו את
those
סיפורו
that-
האישי מהימים הנוראים האלה.
We are all looking forward to hear your
כולנו
story.
מצפים לשמוע את סיפורך, ליונל.
Another thanks for Mr. Robert Singer,
עוד תודה
chairman
למר
of
רוברט
the Center
סינגר,
of Jewish
יושב
Impact,
ראש המרכז לאימפקט יהודי,
for hosting this event with
על
us.
שהוא מארח את האירוע הזה ביחד איתנו.
Also thanks Mrs. Ruth Cohen,
בנוסף, תודה לגברת רות כהן-דר, מנהלת המחלקה
of
למאבק באנטישמיות ושימור זיכרון השואה במשרד החוץ,
who works on combating antisemitism
שעובדת
and preventing this phenomenon.
במאבק
honoring us
באנטישמיות
Thank you all.
ומכבדת אותנו בנוכחותה היום. תודה לכולם.
ב-27 בינואר 1945 שחררו הכוחות הסובייטים את מחנה הריכוז וההשמדה אושוויץ-בירקנאו. השנה מציינים 77 שנה לשחרור המחנה, שמייצג את חוסר האנושיות של האדם בפני האדם. יצחק צוקרמן בספרו יציאת פולין בהוצאת בית לוחמי הגטאות אמר, נדמה לי שמעולם לא היה אבל גדול יותר משביום שמחה זה. היום הזה היה היום העצוב ביותר בחיי. רציתי לבכות, לא משמחה, אלא מיגון. הטנקיסטים המתנשקים, הפרחים המואפים לעברם, שמחת ההמונים, הרגשת החופש, ואנו עומדים בין ההמון, בודדים, מיותמים, אחרונים, ויודעים היטב שאין עוד עם יהודי. איזו שמחה יכולה להיות. יום זה של שחרור מחנה אושוויץ נקבע בנובמבר 2005 על ידי העצרת הכללית של האו"ם כיום השואה הבינלאומי. בהחלטה נקבע כי השואה שבה הוכחד שליש מהעם היהודי תהווה לעולמים אזהרה לכל עמי העולם מפני הסכנה של שנאת חינם, גזענות ודעות קדומות. אני מבקשת להודות לליטל פרבשטיין ביטון, מנחת מועצת התלמידים והנוער המחוזית, ולחברי המועצה על יצירת השותפות והובלת המפגש החשוב הזה, בו נשמע את סיפורו של שורד השואה ליונל פליס. כי זו חובתנו לשמוע, לתעד ולדאוג שהתקופה החשוכה הזו בהיסטוריה לא תשכח לעולם.
Thank you, Einav. I now invite Itai Kobi, Chairman of the Haifa Region Student Council, to say some words. Itai, bevakasha.
Thank you, Lyonel, for sharing your story with us today. I will say a few words in Hebrew, for my fellow students, with your permission. אני זוכר כשהייתי קטן, תמיד שאלתי שאלות הקשורות ליום השואה ולמלחמת העולם השנייה. רציתי לדעת ולנסות להבין מה אנשים עברו שם, או בכלל לדמיין. אמא ואבא תמיד אמרו, זה לא הזמן לדעת, אותו צעיר, הדברים קשים, הסיפורים עצובים, אבל אף פעם לא הצלחתי להבין למה. אבל הגעתי לגיל בו אני מספיק בוגר כדי לשמוע ולהבין. אני חש תחושת גאווה, כשאני יודע שהעם שלי, העם שלנו, העם היהודי, הצליח לשרוד את השואה, את מלחמת העולם השנייה. הם נלחמו בכל האנטישמיות שאנחנו נלחמים בה עד היום. אני זוכר את הפעם הראשונה ששמעתי את סיפורו של שורד שואה. הייתי עמום, ניסיתי להבין איך זה קרה, איך אף אחד לא ניסה לעצור את זה. ואז הבנתי כמה קשה זה היה להשמיע קול נגד השלטון, לנסות לגרום לשינוי. וזו האחריות שלנו, לא לקבל את המציאות כפי שהיום, אלא לשנות ולהילחם למען העתיד שלנו. אני לומד מהשואה המון, שורדי השואה והנספים עברו דברים קשים אבל הם מעולם לא ויתרו. אסור לוותר אף פעם. גם אם קשה תמיד, תמצאו את נקודת האור בה אתם מצליחים לאחז כדי להמשיך לנסות עד שתצליחו. אתה לא יכול לשנות את הקלפים, אבל אתה יכול לשחק איתם חכם. תחשבו על הדברים שאתם עושים, תזכרו אף פעם לא לוותר לעצמכם. תזכרו מה התרחש, את היהודים שנאבקו כדי להגיע לאיפה שאנחנו היום. ולסיכום, אמא ואבא, אני כבר מספיק בוגר. אני מספיק בוגר כדי להבין מה התרחש בגלל השוני שלנו. אני מספיק בוגר כדי למלא את החובה שלי, לעם שלנו, ולהעביר הלאה את כל מה שקרה. אני מבטיח להמשיך, להפיץ ולעזור לחברה שלנו, כמה שיותר, כדי שנגיע הכי רחוק שאפשר. בשביל זה אנחנו כאן היום, כדי להתאחד יחד, כלל החברה הישראלית. מאחל לכם ולכן זום נהדר ומלמד, עם לקיחת דברים חדשים. תודה רבה לכולם.
Thank you, Itai. Thank you very much. And now I'm pleased to invite the Center for Jewish Impact's chairman, Robert Singer, to make opening remarks and introduce our honored speaker, Mr. Lyonnel Fliss. Robert, please.
Shalom, friends, and shalom to many hundreds of viewers watching us today, and especially to my dear friend, Lyonnel Fliss, also known to all of us as Nelu. Thank you to our distinguished speakers. This is our third consecutive year working with the Haifa Regional Council, and we look forward to cultivating the partnership in future years as well. You guys are fantastic. We are grateful for having this event with the participation of hundreds of students, as I say, joined us from different cities in the north of Israel. You have the great responsibility of ensuring that Nelu's story stays with us and never becomes forgotten. And now I'm proud to introduce our guest of honor, Lyonnel Fliss, one of the last survivors of the Iasi pogrom. Lyonnel Fliss is a retired civil engineer born in Iasi, Romania. He's a Holocaust survivor living today in Johannesburg, in South Africa. In 1969, he and his wife escaped from the communist-ruled Romania and moved to Israel, where he was involved in the building of the water tower on the Mount Scopus in Jerusalem. Today, widely regarded as a symbol of the Hebrew University, and I hope many of you have visited there. Following his professional interest in the development of heavy industry, he immigrated to South Africa, becoming chief engineer of the largest construction firm, Morey & Roberts, and getting involved in world-class industrial projects. As a Holocaust survivor, he is sharing his experience on this subject with the aim to make the public aware, to not forget what happened to Jewish people during the period and learn a lesson for future that such tragedies must not happen again. Thank you, Nelu, for your moving story. We'll now allow, and please share with us your story, that what happened on this terrible Sunday.
Thank you, the Center of Jewish Impact.
תודה למרכז לאימפקט יהודי.
Yes. Thank you, Robert, for introducing me with your kind words. For me, it's an honor to address for the first time in Israel, a public in Israel, because until now I shared my experience in various places, but not in our country. I would try to share with you the experience for the next generation. And this is the scope of my talk today. The next generation of Israel is the most important one to preserve the memory and the experience and all the sufferances of the Jewish people, Am HaYehudi, during the Second World War and the Holocaust. My speech is, of course, about experience on Holocaust. It's about the 3 years of Holocaust that I spent in Romania, and 1 day, 3 years and 1 day. But because of the intensity of tragedy in that day, which we'll call from now on in my speech, that Sunday, because it was on a Sunday, I'll concentrate only on this 1 day, because that says a lot. The Holocaust in Europe was very well known through tragedies in many places that became famous in a way, notorious in the other way, because they were said and published to the large public. Auschwitz, Birkenau, the Lithuanian massacres, the places in the concentration camps and the extermination, they were very well said in many books, movies, and conferences. Romanian Holocaust was called at the end as the silent Holocaust, because very few people share their tragedy with the rest of the world. About survivors, when it was said that I am a survivor of Holocaust, I would like to explain that we survivors in general weren't heroes. The real heroes were those who saved us to become survivors. Now, I'm not so sure that everybody from those who are listening to this webinar is familiar with the place and the times of the Holocaust in Romania. Therefore, I ask for a map of Europe where it's shown Romania, even with the arrow, in the southeastern part of Europe, with a capital city, Bucharest, and Romania, it's a medium-sized country, which is a very beautiful one, with big rivers, mountains, seashore. But very important to tell you that it has a very extreme continental climate, and this will be part of my presentation. What you see here, that map, it's a map of Romania before the Second World War, when this country was divided and cut into pieces by the grand powers of the area, Germany and the Soviet Union. And we can see in the green that a big chunk of Transylvania was given to the Hungarians. A big part of Moldova was taken by Soviet Union, and in the south, a portion was taken by Bulgaria. So this cut Romania into pieces in those times created a situation that it was instability, it was unhappiness, and it was for the Romanians themselves a tragedy. The trouble was that Romania was one of the most anti-Semitic countries. I don't know if I have to explain what anti-Semitism is to people in Israel who didn't suffer, at least the next generation didn't suffer from anti-Semitism. But Romania was so anti-Semitic for a long time that it was the last one after the First World War when the Romanian citizenship was awarded to the Jews. It was awarded only under pressure by the grand powers who won the First World War. And this triggered more anti-Semitism in Romania because they accused the Jews that they tried to blackmail Romania to accept giving citizenship to the Jews by not receiving the Transylvanian province after the First World War. In any case, Romania was a country in disarray before the Second World War. And most of the population and the government and the organizations became even more anti-Semitic, blaming the Jews for all the bad situation of this country, instead of blaming the real causes of Romania being treated like a country losing a war. The result was that a fascist government came into power. They got all the powers of government and started to implement anti-Semitic laws as their main policy. The young people, in particular, students, they associated themselves with fascist organizations. And they were treating the Jews in the various places, towns, countryside, but particularly in Iasi, which had a very large Jewish population. Almost 50% of the population in Iasi was Jewish. By beating them up in the street, killing without any punishment, but particularly in universities and in the schools, they were terrorizing their colleagues before they throwing them out of the schools or universities. In this atmosphere, Romania became an ally of Hitler in 1941. The result was that not a long time after this, German troops came to Romania, and I was at that time a 6-year-old boy. For a boy of 6, that from now on I'll present you my memories seen through the eyes and through the mind of a little boy, and sometimes they will be hilarious for you because they were very dangerous situations that I couldn't understand them. For me, the coming of the German troops, which for my parents were very threatening, very dangerous when they saw them, for me, it was in admiration for them. Here you can see the 3 main characters of my story of that day, not of the 3 years of Holocaust, which were mild compared with that Sunday. I don't think that anybody from the public can recognize me as they saw me on this screen with the center character in the picture, which is the same person. Here I am with my parents a few weeks before that Sunday. I would say that in the first part of the war, which started on the Eastern Front in the 22nd of June, 1941, whilst for 2 years the Second World War started in the west part of Europe. Just a week after the Romanian and German troops invaded the Soviet Union, it happened in Iasi, one of the greatest pogrom and the worst ones of the Holocaust. When in one day, in that day that I mentioned before, that Sunday, and the few days that followed, 13,000 Jews were massacred. But what it was special and different from what happened in other countries where there were pogroms, it was that the majority of the population in the town, the police, the army, the gendarmerie, they were also assisted by the German troops, participated with kind of an enthusiasm to the killing of their own fellow citizens who were established in Iasi for more than 4 centuries. In this case, I'll start my story. I gave you the scenario of Iasi. Maybe now you'll remember this name. It is almost unknown, even in Europe. It was on a Sunday morning, early, when we were sleeping in our flat on Brătianu Street, a street in the center of Iasi. On a block of flats at the first floor. So, as I say, early in the morning, we had shootings in the street and people crying, shoutings. My mother immediately, through the experience of the last few weeks in Iasi, when anti-Semitism and people were terrorized by the local fascists called legionnaires, immediately realized what happens in the street and scream, "There is a pogrom." Now, I, as a little boy, didn't have this word in my vocabulary. Nobody explained to me, and I never heard about it. But I understood from my mother that it was a bad thing. And she immediately ordered us, my father, that all three will hide under the bed in the bedroom. Immediately we did this. But again, as a little boy, I didn't think that it's something difficult to be there. Immediately we got under the bed and she gave us more instructions there. Don't move, don't cough, don't sneeze, and don't talk. For me, this was very easy to do because I was playing hide and seek with my friends, little boys. And I did exactly what she said. Not long time after, came on the corridor of the block with strong steps, a man who started shouting to open the door and knocking on the door with his fist. It was Iasi. Iasi was the caretaker of the block. When he saw that we don't answer, he returned immediately with an axe and broke the door. He came in, haven't seen us, he started to swear, and started looting the flat. Took everything, made a big bunch with the cover of the bed under which we were hiding and shivering, and left quite happy with his loot. We didn't get out from under the bed because we were scared that he would come back with his axe, and you can guess what he was prepared to do to us. Not long time after this, we had some noise of boots on the staircase. The door was open widely by Iasi, and soldiers came into our flat talking in a language that I didn't understand. They were German troops. They came in, but these German soldiers, they weren't just thieves like Iasi. They were trained for searching houses. So the first thing what they did, they turned our bed upside down, exposing us on the floor to the so-called glorious German army. They took us up, ordered to get in the staircase. They pushed my mother that she got badly hurt by rolling on the steps, and took us in the street and ordered us to march hands up with German soldier following us. After a while, having my hands up and sore, I let them down. But this upset very much the German soldier who was following us, and he ordered me to hold my hands up. I didn't understand, actually, what he was saying. My mother told me to hold immediately my hands up, otherwise he may shoot me. I thought that he is a human being, and I turned to him and I said in Romanian, because I also, like a child, I thought that everybody speaks Romanian, that my hands are sore and I can't hold them. What he did, he cocked his arm, his rifle, ready to shoot. When my parents saw this, immediately they helped me to hold my hands up with one hand and holding their other hand up. In this formation, we arrived to a long queue in town where thousands of Jews were herded to the place of massacre, which was the police station. When we arrived at the entrance in the courtyard of the police station, we had shootings there. And when the gate was opening, we saw big mountains of bodies. And my mother immediately understood what was going on, and saw a Romanian officer next to us who was supposed to bring groups of Jews inside the courtyard where they were murdered. He was so close to her that she took his hand and kissed it. She kneeled in front of him and begged him to let her and my father go through the gate into the courtyard, the gate of death, and keep me out and protect me. Actually, she asked him to adopt me. He was a totally unknown person to us, and we couldn't offer him anything but just begging him to save me. He did even more. He helped my mother to get up because she was badly injured and bleeding all over, and took her by the hand. She took me by the hand, and I took my father by hand. And slowly, slowly, we walked against the stream of the queue to the other end of the queue, for the great risk of this officer, who even could be seen what he was doing, he would have been immediately executed, considered as a traitor. He was giving us this way another chance until we'll get with the queue back to the gate of the police station, another chance to survive. And it happened. By some miracle, the government ordered to stop the massacre, the women and children to go home, and only the men to be retained, and most of them, thousands of them, had a terrible death. They were taken into something that I don't know if it was known for many years, into the death trains, a diabolic invention of the Romanian Nazis, where people were crammed in cars meant for animals. They sealed the ventilation openings and let them in the hot summer of Romania to die suffocated and die by thirst. In that particular day, I matured in one day from a little child, little boy, into a mature man by seeing all the atrocities that were played in front of me, particularly in that police station courtyard. What can I say is that after my father had a good chance of not being taken in this cattle wagons of the death train and returned to our house, that for me it's difficult to explain how a young officer, totally unknown to us, risked his life to save some strangers without any reward for this. I asked all my life how it was possible. And because I couldn't find any explanation to this miracle, I started to think that it was a God deed. Even now, I think it was, for me, a God's deed that we survived, and I am able now to speak to you. The rest of the Holocaust for me was relatively mild. Of course, there were all kinds of persecutions, no school, sufferings, famine, lack of food. But compared with that Sunday, it was very mild. And this changed for the rest of my life, my character becoming, what I can say, tougher. Because anything else in terms of sufferings compared with what I saw at this day looked to me insignificant. Now, the rest of the war passed, and I and my family got refuge in Bucharest as the front line was coming to Iași. I got educated in Bucharest, and the rest will be what may be the subject of another story. I can say that in one day I saw extreme inhumanity and extreme humanity from that officer, which made me lose my childhood. I got, after all this, many thoughts about that Sunday, but there were two events that were like a follow-up of that terrible experience. One was 70 years after that Sunday, when it was the 70th commemoration of the Pogrom in Iasi. For the first time, I saw the mass graves of part of the 13,000 who were murdered, because more graves, mass graves, were continuously discovered. But it was after a ceremony, a commemoration ceremony, that left me with deep memories. One of the memories is that 5 survivors of the death trains, still alive, were awarded the honorary citizenship of Iasi. 4 of them were people of high culture, professors, so said that they don't keep a feeling of revenge to the fellow citizens of Iasi, but they ask those who are responsible for the criminal acts to be punished according to the law. But the 5th one was by profession, he was a carpenter. He said the deepest thing that I ever heard. He said his will, and he said this crying, is that the tragedy of that Sunday not to be repeated. Another speaker was the Archbishop of Iasi in Moldavia. He was the Metropolitan of Moldova, who said in Romanian, one of the Psalms, 133, that actually should be our wish in future. And this psalm says, Ma tovu manayim ahim shevin gam yachad. This was the will that the Archbishop of Iasi passed to the audience and impressed me. In that day, I think that it was one of eye-opening for the people who started talking about what happened at that Sunday. Because until then, people kept quiet. They didn't want it to open this subject. However, last year, I visited Iasi. I was asked by the Jewish community to give a presentation on my memories about that Sunday. I gave it mainly to a public that was similar to this one in Israel. It was a class of high school students. All of them, I believe, maybe there were a few Jews, but all of them being Christian, non-Jewish. And it was for them the first time they had what happened in their own town, on their streets, on the streets they are walking every day. As a result of this speech, there were voices in the public who asked the organizers, to ask the mayor of the city to award me an honorary citizenship, not because I survived. This wasn't any heroic act, but for opening the eyes and the minds of the people of what actually happened in their own town, in their own streets, as seen by a little boy. The result was that their request was approved, and a month later, I was awarded the honorary citizenship of the town of Iasi. This took place exactly in that Sunday, when it was the 81st commemoration of Pogrom, of that Sunday. It started in the morning with a commemoration at the mass graves, enormous mass graves in the Jewish cemetery. Later on, I was asked for an interview by the local television channel. And it was very interesting where this interview took place. It took place in the building of the police station where the great massacre happened. In the same room where people were tortured. The interviewer asked me a question that it wasn't asked before, and particularly by non-Jews. She asked me, "Are you prepared to forgive what happened?" For me, it was a difficult question. And my answer was that I'm not qualified to give forgiveness to those who committed these monstrous crimes. Those who are qualified, they suffer more than me. And of course, they didn't survive. So you can't ask them for forgiveness. The only one, to me, to offer or not offer forgiveness will be God. But I explain that the children of those who committed the crimes should not be judged for the crimes of their parents. In the evening, it was organized the actual ceremony of awarding that title of honorary citizenship. It took place at the most prestigious building in this town, at the National Opera House of Yash, which is a monument of architecture and of culture. The mayor presented me with this order of citizenship, honorary citizenship. And after I thank for this honor, and I was standing on the stage of the opera in front of the full capacity house, I realized the transformation in these 81 years from the little boy marched in the streets at point blank by a German Nazi soldier and threatened to be shot, to this moment of being on the stage and applauded by my fellow citizens. This for me was like a light beam of hope that humanity will prevail in these times when the anti-Semitism is on high rise all over the world. My message that I gave there to the public was, let the wounds heal, but keep the scars on, to remind us the tragedy that happened in that Sunday, and to make sure that such a tragedy will not happen again. This is my message now to the next generation to whom this webinar is dedicated, that I'm going to pass the torch of memory to the young generation, and their duty, and this is my duty as one of the few survivors left alive. And their duty is to keep the flame burning for the next generation, that again in this world such tragedies to be remembered and not to be repeated. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Nello, and thank you for this very strong message. We have a few hundreds of young Israelis, and not only Israelis, also students from South Africa, listening to your presentation, to your story, to your personal story. And it is, like you say, it is the responsibility of the next generation to see that the memory and the events that happened that you just described so privately and so emotionally will be never forgotten, and that we have the responsibility, mainly the students on this call, have the responsibility to pass the message to generations to come. I think you are not only the honorary citizen of Iasi, you're really an honorary person of the Jewish community, of everybody here in Israel, for all you did here, and for really bringing your story in such a personal matter. I'll just say a few words in Hebrew. אני פשוט אמרתי לניצול השואה שהייתה לנו כאן הזדמנות להקשיב לו, לליונל פיס, שהמסר שהוא העביר לכם ולנו, לכולנו, הוא מסר שאין לו תחליף, הוא מסר חשוב ביותר, וזו האחריות של כולנו להעביר את המסר הזה גם לדורות הבאים, ולוודא שההיסטוריה של השואה וההיסטוריה של מה שקרה בפוגרום הנוראי הזה ביאשי, שנרצחו בו 13,000 יהודים, לא יישכח לעולם. ואנחנו שחיים כאן בארץ, אז גם להבין את הערך של היתרון העצום שיש לנו בזה שאנחנו חיים במדינה שלנו, ולהגן עליה, על מנת שדברים כאלה באמת לא יקרו אף פעם בעתיד. Nelu, we have a very few minutes for a number of questions, and I just want to open it to our students, but I want to take a privilege to ask the first one. Looking in retrospect, and we are really a few decades after what happened, how do you see the Jewish nation, both in Israel and in the diaspora, 20 years from now, when most of the Holocaust survivors won't be with us anymore, but on one hand, but on the other hand, having the state Israel today, which obviously at the days of Holocaust didn't exist. So if I would ask you, Nelo, 20 years from now, how do you see it?
Well, you're looking to the future. Actually, the presentation of what happened 81 years ago, it's just opening for us a view for the future. By remembering the past, we should build our future. Israel for me, but it's for the whole Jewish nation. It's not just a home. Israel brought to us, to the Jewish people, the human dignity. We weren't considered, before Israel was created, even human beings. This was the cause that we suffered for 2,000 years. So, to me, it's hope, but it's worry as well. Because it's hope, because the Jewish nation has such a potential, has such a talent, has such a unique character in the world, that the future should belong to the Jewish people. However, there is worry seeing that this clever, cultured, talented, intelligent people can't come together in unity to create this extraordinary country that Israel will become. I hope that in the next 20 years we'll see a united nation in Israel and in diaspora.
Amen. Nello, we have many students who want to ask questions, but we have time only for one. So I would like to give a stage to one of the students, the first one that was in this queue, to ask the last question for this session. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Cleo Galbart. I'm spokesperson and head of spokes committee at the Haifa Region Youth and Student Council. First of all, thank you so much for being here with us today. And my question is, you've talked about it a little bit, but as a Holocaust survivor, what values do you believe are the most important for the younger generation to learn?
What values? What values for the future generation?
Well, when we're talking about values, values are of many kinds. There are moral values, material values, cultural values. But I believe that the young generation has the potential to integrate these values in their lives and create a society where harmony will prevail. So the main value that I put on top of these values, all of them, they are valuable. It's to create a harmonious society in Israel. Having such an achievement, all other values become top cultural people in the world. Top culture, top scientists, top developer, not only of Israel, but helping the whole world to be what they say, or legoim, as it was said thousands of years ago. This should be the value that eventually, through harmonious relationships, to be achieved.
And love.
Nello, I'm receiving here questions, you won't believe it, but including also from Argentina, as far as from the Jewish community in Argentina, and there are many other questions, but unfortunately we don't have time and we'll have to leave it for another time. But the question goes along with what you said, if you think that the human beings have changed in the last 80 years, and do you think that really also the Jewish community, the Jewish people, are able to come to more unity. But I would like to conclude this very emotional session by saying a few things. As it happens, my family were born they come from more or less the same area on the other side of the border in Moldova, and your story is also very close to my heart. We are going through some changes also here in Israel, and only now, 80 years after the Second World War, the Jewish community came back to the size of what Jewish community was 80 years ago, because we lost 6 million people during the Holocaust. And your message of unity of our communities worldwide, of our communities here in Israel, a unity of communities between the diaspora and Israel, I think it's coming from somebody like yourself and from your generation, I think it's the key and it's extremely important. I would like to thank everybody who organized this outstanding event, which was recorded, and we'll send all the recordings to everybody interested, including also to Yad Vashem and to all the Jewish communities in Iasi, in Romania, and here in Israel. I'm sure it will be distributed in many ways. I would like to wish you at least till 120, at least 120 in the same spirit like you're having it now. And I would like to say the same in Hebrew. תודה רבה לכל מי שלקח חלק בארגון של האירוע הזה. המון תודה לנלו. אני חושב שהמסר שהוא העביר לנו, מסר של אחדות, הוא מסר קריטי גם בימינו כאן בישראל, אבל במיוחד בין ישראל לקהילות יהודיות בכל העולם. רק עכשיו, 80 שנה אחרי מלחמת העולם השנייה, הגודל של האוכלוסייה היהודית בעולם הגיע לאותם המספרים שהיינו לפני המלחמה, כי איבדנו 6 מיליון יהודים. ועל מנת גם לשרוד וגם, כמו שנלו אמר, להצליח ולשמור גם על מדינת ישראל, המסר של אחדות הוא באמת מניצול שואה שראה את הרצח הנוראי של אנשי העירו. אני חושב שזה מסר באמת הכי חזק שרק יכול להיות. וכפי שנלו אמר, אני מאוד מאוד מבקש מכל מי שישתתף בשיחה הזאת, מכל הילדים, תזכרו את השיחה, תזכרו את נלו, אנחנו נשלח לכם גם את הסרט, ויש לכם עכשיו אחריות באמת להעביר את הלפיד הזה גם לדורות הבאים. אז תודה רבה לכולם, ובזה אנחנו נסיים את השיחה הזו. נלו, thank you so much, and be gesund.
Robert, thank you very much for inviting me. And I would like to say a last word. My dream
החלום שלי
for future as I can survive. You very generously gave me 120 years. But my dream is to leave a legacy to the Am HaYehudi in Israel and diaspora, and particularly in Jerusalem. And thank you very much for helping me.
Thank you, and thank you once again to everybody who participated. We're closing this session. Thank you.